Well, let's start by saying hello, everybody. My name is Steve Murphy, and I have a message to bring to everybody. I've got a great friend of mine here.
He
His
likes that name, Steve Murphy.
Well, the Canadians like that name, I guess. Anyway, yeah, we're both Canadians. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But I got a good friend of mine here. His name is John M. Hill, um, and he's got a very interesting story to tell. And I'll let him do that in his own words.
sure.
And basically, a very interesting life, and we're going to share some of that with you people. We're trying to get a message out there to our YouTube viewers. And basically, at the end of the video, if you guys have any comments or you'd like to subscribe, both like and subscribe would be great.
hmm
So I'll start it off by introducing Mr. John M. Hill. He's a
Yeah,
very good friend of mine, great author, and
and that's what we're talking about. Oh,
first, then you get into
just
the
a
others.
poor little old druggist. I used to work with Lawtons and the predecessor for Lawtons here in Halifax while I was going to school, college, and then after that, a few other drugstores and the precursor to the Shoppers Drug Mart in Dartmouth and all kinds of others. And then I got tired of that. I filled about a 500,000 prescriptions, and that can get boring after a while. So I went to work with Hoffman LaRoche. They hired me and actually trained me so well that I could. I had to take many medical school, university courses, extra courses, to the point where if I had written my thesis, I would have a PhD in pharmacology.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the responsibility was pretty high as well. I had been trained as a pharmacist anyway, and they wanted me to be able to talk turkey with any specialist doctor anywhere in North America. I did. Maybe it was just nerve on my part, but
Mm-hmm.
I did anyway.
Well, that was to be able to be effective in your selling technique of all the drugs that they were coming out with,
Well, not
because
only that,
you
but
know.
I had to start it in the teaching area
Mm-hmm.
of the hospital. Um, the psychiatrist, in the case of Valium, the psychiatrist would have to know that it worked on a different part of the brain and what that different part was, and then to the point where the chief of psychiatry here in Halifax had me lecture the medical students and interns on this newly found limbic system, which was a big hot item then. Now it's common knowledge, but Valium has a very specific effect on the limbic system.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And
And that's what we're talking about. I'm author of a book. I'm a druggist. I'm not really a good writer, but I think you'll find this passes. I had the opportunity of talking with the inventor of Valium, the Valium chemical actually, the benzodiazepines, Mr. Sternbach in New York about in the mid 1960s. That's when Valium was started in both the States and Canada, and we had a big talk. He was a little bit disgruntled there one day. He was at a luncheon, and he had invented the whole chemical chain. It's a five-sided carbon ring, which is supposed to be impossible, or at least it was then. And he did that in Krakow, Poland. And the American company of Hoffman LaRoche Limited, that's the big world-class drug company, they wanted to take all the credit down in the United States. And as you know, as a Canadian, or fellow Canadians, we like the truth to come out once in a while, okay? And so, therefore, he started talking to me as a Canadian and as a person who was interested more in the chemistry of the drug. Five-sided carbon ring was impossible then, and it became the first of a whole class of drugs, of which the first was not Valium but Librium, and then Valium, and then all the way down the road to 50 years to Zoloft and
Xanax and
all of those
different
others.
ones.
They're all relatives of this one chemical, and it they have used billions of Librium, more billions of Valium, billions of the other, and it's really a pretty interesting study on our society when so many tranquilizers have to be used. But heck with that. Let's get on with the story. He was at a luncheon. I was at a luncheon. He was a little bit pissed off, so he started talking. He said, "No, that drug was invented in Krakow, Poland, at the university there. I and my associate were trying to develop a five-sided carbon ring, and we did." That's all he could say. But he said, "Sit back, and I'm going to tell you a story." And he told me a fascinating story about Valium being the lab being trashed by Nazi brown shirts just before the war. The drug was stolen. Some sample was stolen. They tried to get the formula, but it wasn't written down anywhere in that lab. And so Hitler's people started using it as an anti-fear drug, and therefore a secret weapon with all kinds of publicity, or what they used to call it then?
Propaganda.
Propaganda, you know. And so the Allies heard of it. They actually sent a spy to either kill or capture him. The drug was used by Hitler on the troops attacking, guess what? Poland. It started the war, the Second World War, that way. And they were really cut and slashed. They were really merciless to try to make a point that Poland had been up for grabs and that didn't have to do this, and it was all political. Anyway, to carry on with the story, the Allies decided that they're going to have to kill him or capture him, so they started chasing him. In the meantime, he and his wife, his lab colleague, who had also helped make the drug, they went chasing after her parents, who were Jewish and had been arrested and sent to the Warsaw Ghetto. So they went to Warsaw to try to find them and bring them back. As you know, people didn't really know how serious things were then.
Yeah, things were just getting started. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short of it, while they were in Warsaw, she got arrested and sent into the part of Warsaw that was fenced off, soon to be called the Warsaw Ghetto. And what they were going to try to do then was to take all of the Jews they could find, put them all in one place in Warsaw, and starve them to death. That was the first concentration camp. Okay? And of course, he started chasing after her when she was arrested. So everybody was chasing everybody else. Meanwhile, he stayed in Warsaw. He didn't go back. What he decided to do was to chase after her, to search for her, try to bring her out. And in the meantime, since the idea was that Hitler wanted everyone starved to death there, he would smuggle in some painkillers, some sulfa drugs, and some vitamins, all as made by Hoffmann-La Roche of Switzerland. And he could use that because he was able to work under the guise of being a Swiss, working for a Swiss drug company. So it took about over a year for the Nazis to catch on to this, make things too hot for him to stay. But he never found her, and the Nazis never did either, because they kind of goofed up on that. They could have used her. She's equally qualified to with the drugs and all that, with the chemistry, to be able to probably make some more.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
they missed the boat on that one.
Yeah. they
So
wouldn't have
back to
thought.
that, the story is kind of nice because it helps them, and then along with that, there's some more other other things, serendipitous.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a word?
It can be. I think it is. Serendipitous events and whatnot. Now, why don't you start out by telling them what year that this story was told to you?
Okay, I was in at a big launch meeting for Valium in 1964, I believe it was, and that was all held at the Waldorf Astoria. Every luncheon was held there, and it was those big round tables of 10, and with a VIP at each table. I just lucked out. I was a druggist here in Halifax, and I was invited down there for the meeting. He happened to be the VIP. I sat down for the luncheon, the first luncheon, and when he started talking about his story, I made damn sure I was for the next three.
Everything. What happened to the inventors
Oh.
of this drug?
Well, let's get back to the story. Yeah. Okay, Leo Sternbach then was fairly young, and he was chasing after his female associate who had been arrested. He was probably the protagonist. He was being chased. He didn't realize this, but he was being chased by one guy who had been trained in Canada, an American actually working for the Allies, and on the other side of the things, he was being helped by a representative from Roche in Switzerland, and then the protagonist came along, a bumbling Nazi officer who kind of messed things up too. So that was a story and a half too. So, but eventually he was able to spend over a year looking for his woman, his colleague, and also smuggling prescription drugs into the big. Sometimes the population of the Warsaw Ghetto part was up to over 500,000 people, Jewish people, and intelligentsia and so on. And the idea was to starve them. It didn't work. Maybe Hoffman LaRoche and he had something to do with that. Maybe not.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now the other thing is, since the book is called, what it's titled, Strange Associations, it doesn't seem to lean toward, the wartime or Hitler using Valium as a secret weapon. What's the connotation of strange associations?
Well, yeah, okay. I'll explain that this way. We had to do everything in 3 luncheons. There was 3 chances I had to talk with him at length. So, and the first one, of course, we started. That night I went dashing out to get a Helroy scribbler so I could make notes, and I came in with the book the next day and started writing. The third day we had the story pretty well down on paper, and I said, okay, what about, so we're driving to Switzerland, escaping. This is toward the end of the story. And he said, yeah. He said, the driver of the car was kind of interesting. He was a freedom fighter, and he had pretty well burnt out. He was getting older, and he started talking to them as he was driving towards Switzerland, having them all escaped from the train in Germany. You'll read the book, you'll know what I mean. Anyway, his name was Zorac, Tzorac, and he was going to, after dropping them off in Switzerland, he was going to head south, hopefully, and pick up his a girl he knew, a young girl, a young teenage girl, hopefully marry her and whatever it took to get accepted as an immigrant into either the U.S. or Canada. That was his goal at the time. He was a coal miner, or had been, a long time ago. She was quite young as an Italian girl, but anyway. So, but when I heard the name Zorac, I nearly fell off the chair because when I was 7 or 8 years old, about a year after the war ended, I personally observed a Mr. Zorac and his new young Italian wife and another adopted Italian boy move in about 100 yards away from me in Spring Hill, Nova Scotia. So I then never fell off the chair when he told me about that. Talk about deja vu and deja forward and deja everything else.
Deja reverse. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, for people to keep in mind the fact you're being told a story by a complete stranger, even after three luncheons.
He knew I was a Canadian, but he didn't even know where.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Had no idea. Didn't know what your neighbors were, or it was like a David Copperfield thing. Had no idea about you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then all of a sudden he starts spewing this stuff out that here's your neighbors from just down the street he's talking about. He doesn't even know this.
Yeah, their adopted son, Paul, was a friend of mine as well, of course, but he was a buddy of my younger brother, who was the same age. They'd both be around 75 now if they're still alive.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and I knew him. I knew his wife Marie very well. Marie, after he died, and that's another story. Marie was a widow for a while, and then she met a Cameron guy, actually one of the sons of the people who owned the building to which it was rented to the family.
Mm-hmm.
Just on the corner. It was on the corner of McFarland Street and McGee Street. Anybody from Spring Hill will know that. And we lived on McFarland Street, right the next lot up.
Mm-hmm. Now the other thing for you guys at home is John here. He's been speaking to National Film Board and different movie type people and whatnot to try to pitch this idea in, would it be a viable screenplay idea, and would it work as a movie? Would it be adaptable?
It was considered by all three National Film Board guys to be very interesting for a full-length movie.
Mm-hmm.
So we're working on that. I need a screenwriter. Any of you guys hear this and you write your screenwriter, give me a call.
Mm-hmm.
Get the
or send us a message on the link here in the bottom of the video or something. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I need a screenwriter. And, I should comment right now that the book is published. Its name is Strange Associations. That has more to do with this serendipitous thing at the end than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I probably should have said something like Hitler's first secret weapon or something. That's probably the more exciting thing.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, I'm a pharmacist, not a writer. Okay, or something. That's probably the more exciting thing.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, I'm a pharmacist, not a writer. Okay,
yeah.
So it's there, and we need a screenwriter. We're going for a full movie.
Mm-hmm. So anyone interested in picking up the book or wondering where you can get it, or you'd like to read it, we're going to show you what it looks like, and John here can tell you where you can get it.
Sure. All of the Indigo chapter stores, all of the Amazon, anywhere in the world. Amazon, Indigo, I forget the name of the big wholesaler. It's not Mackenzie, but it's close. I'll think of it.
Oh, you know
The big book wholesaler in the States,
Mm-hmm.
and all of them deliver anywhere in the world. I have right now that book is selling faster in Old Scotland than it is here in New Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
That's the book there.
So we'll show you a picture of what the book looks like, everybody, and you can go and pick it up where John told you to go to pick it up. I have to hold it up here so that they can see it.
I think the point of that book is that it is all true. As far as Sternbach told me, and I tend to trust him. He had nothing to cut. He was already a very well off older gentleman chemist. As I met him, he was the research director in the United States Hoffmann LaRoche organization. Hoffmann LaRoche is Swiss, but it's worldwide. It's just in most of the countries of the world, and no wonder everybody needs Valium.
Mm-hmm. So there's what it looks like, everybody. There's the full front of it. That's what the front of the book looks like. And as you can see, it's got a little sub line there as well.
Yeah. Well, it was Hitler's first secret weapon, and the Allies sent a man after Leo to either capture him or kill him,
Mm-hmm.
because he was responsible for Hitler having an anti-fear drug, a secret weapon. And Hitler used to be pretty good at PR. He made it known that he had a secret weapon or two. You may remember.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we want to thank everybody for tuning in and checking us out. And if you like this video, comment on it, like it, subscribe to the channel. If you want to see more stories from Mr. John M. Hill here.
Yeah, we have a sequel going. The question was, what happened to the girl? He never did find her, but he found out about her later on.
Mm-hmm.
She was seen being shot, escaping from Sobibor. And Sobibor was a Nazi death camp. They decided to close, and somehow the word slipped out to the inmates before it closed. So they know that they were going to either have to die or escape.
Mm-hmm.
So they did a mass escape. 50 of them, they don't know who exactly, about 50 people survived out of 600.
Mm-hmm. So watch for the sequel. There will be a sequel coming, and the sequel's title is
Echoes of History.
And there you go, Echoes of History.
Unless we change our mind.
Unless, well, possibly, but more than likely. Hopefully not. I think it's a good title. It works great. But we'll have more videos if you guys want. If you want to ask some questions or anything like that, feel free to, like and subscribe, and we'll see you again.
Ah, boy, that was dry.